Deion Sanders and Colorado are continuing to build up the hype heading into the 2023 season. And I'm going to tell you the latest reason why so many people are hyped about the Buffs and what they're doing in Boulder on today's episode of Locked On Buffs.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? This is Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Boulder. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about Colorado selling out 2 games in the earliest manner they've done so since 2019, I believe. We're going to be talking about quarterbacks that are perfect for a Netflix documentary, kind of like the NFL one that was titled Quarterback, that followed Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, and Marcus Mariota. I'm going to talk about why I think Deion Sanders would be a good option. And then we're going to talk about some interesting tidbits from Pac-12 Media Day, which is currently going on as I'm recording this. So if I missed something, it probably hasn't happened yet. Okay, let's dive right in. But before we do, I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Buffs your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Your team every single day right here. Okay. As I talked about in my little intro there, Colorado has sold out 2 games already. And as you can imagine, the first one being Nebraska, the first home game of the Coach Prime era. Also a rivalry game that I don't think many people around I would say many people around college football don't really realize how big of a rivalry that was. I would say I myself, until I started following the program closer and closer, kind of like started to understand more about what the Buffs fans are really passionate about. I would say you guys view Nebraska as a top-tier rivalry. I would say outside of like Colorado State and maybe who else? Maybe Oregon or something. I would say Nebraska's up there as one of your biggest rivals. Obviously, they have Big 12 ties. They have ties with previous conference foes. But I didn't realize how big of a rivalry it was. And now, heading into 2023, we have Colorado hosting Nebraska, who also has a new head coach, trying to flip the roster, new quarterback, everything in between. So both programs are trying to get back on the right track, and it's going to be interesting to see how they match up. But Stanford, the Stanford game, which we're going to call it the Kevin Borba Bowl, is the other game that has sold out. Has been the other game that's been sold out, which is pretty exciting as well. It's going to be a Friday game. I believe it's going to be a Pac-12 after dark game, so it's going to be very exciting. But in a release by the team, it says the Buffs sold out their spring game, which obviously we knew this. The Buffs sold out the spring game event in the snow, so I'm not shocked that they're already selling out games. But they said the program has sold out 2 games in their schedule with over a month until the 2023 season begins. Obviously, those games, like I said, in Nebraska and Stanford. According to the release, the 2 matchups are the first 2 games of the 2023 seasons to be completely sold out, which marks the first time that this has happened this soon since 2019. On top of it, obviously, the excitement comes from Coach Prime being there. The excitement comes from the new roster and kind of like the newly found excitement, I would say, in the program. I would say there was always excitement in Colorado. There was obviously a field storming and a pretty packed game against Cal this past year, which was the only win. But I think there's more excitement. Obviously, you can only fit 50,000 people or whatever it is in Folsom Field, but this 50,000 people feels much more excited than last year's 50,000 people, if you know what I mean. On top of that, we got obviously Coach Prime, all of his transfers. It's Folsom Field's 100th season, which is exciting. So witnessing history, I myself, when I went there for the spring game, didn't realize that I was kind of in a historical landmark. Because when you think of like 100 years ago, it's a long time ago. My great-grandma was 3. Oddly enough, she was 103. So shout out to her. But either way, there's a lot of excitement around Colorado. I think this is just the fans being bought into what Coach Prime, his message, his motives, and obviously they're brought into what success they think he could bring to the program. And I think there's no reason they shouldn't be. And it's really, I would say, encouraging if you're someone who watches college football from afar and you see, not me, I'm just talking about someone in general, someone who watches college football from afar and you're seeing like the revival of a program. Because obviously it's always tough to see programs go through droughts. It's always tough to see programs kind of be not as good as they once were, or maybe just not be relevant. And so when you see a program like Colorado, who, whether you guys want to admit it or not, were not relevant until probably for almost, besides that one positive season with, I think it was like 2016 was the good year. hasn't been many bright spots. And so to see the energy around Colorado, the national attention around Colorado, which has been major, I think that's huge for this program. Also, these two games are both games that I think Colorado has a great chance of winning. They're both games that when I did my schedule prediction my schedule prediction for Colorado, I think it was last week or the week before. These were both games that I had as wins in the win column. So Colorado fans are going out in full support. Realistically, I think Nebraska is going to be, which Nebraska is on big noon kickoff. Half of Colorado's games are nationally televised, so they're going to be must watch regardless. But that game has so many storylines because we have the new coaches. We have the Coach Prime style where it's bringing as many transfers as possible. Matt Rule is acting like a traditionalist, even though he brought in transfers as well. We have the rivalry itself. That's going to be a huge storyline. We have Jeff Sims versus Deion Sanders, two quarterbacks looking to lead bigger programs than what they were previously at to more success. We have big noon kickoff early in the season. Both teams trying to establish themselves. Both teams trying to get off to a hot start. And so I think realistically, that game is going to be one of the more watched games early in the season. I think LSU Florida State will be a pretty heavily watched game, and then Texas Alabama is the same week, so that one's also going to be heavily watched as well. So there's a lot of good football at the beginning of the season this year, and Colorado is going to be partaking in a few of those games. So that's exciting for Buffs fans. I think if I had to make a bold prediction, Colorado wins by a couple scores. I'll go 10 points. I'd be confident in a 10-point win for Colorado. I think when you have the crowd with this much crowd support and this much energy around the program, I think maybe Colorado come prepared. And I don't know how they're going to do against TCU, but they're going to want to either build off of it or move on from a loss. So either way, they're going to have a lot of focus on Nebraska. There's going to be a lot of attention around this game, and very cool to see that they're already selling out heading into the 2023 season. I need you guys to know that this episode is brought to you by eBay Motors, one of our newest sponsors. eBay Motors, for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green checks to know the part will fit, or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game. When you shop on eBay Motors, and with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items, exclusions apply. Okay, we talked about people, the fans, the energy, the sellout crowds already pouring in for Colorado, and they haven't even played a game yet. And there's a lot of excitement around them. Can't blame the folks over there in Boulder and probably around the country. I bet you people from around the country will kind of come in and maybe. I think Colorado might be a destination team, if you will. Like destination weddings where it's like, you know what, I'm going to go to Greece or whatever. Obviously, I'm not comparing Boulder to Greece, but I think college football fans, diehard fans, will want to catch a game in Folsom. I think especially this year, whether they support the team or not, I think there's going to be a lot of outside interest in Colorado. Okay, so I came up with this idea yesterday based off a Twitter discussion that I was in. I saw someone tweet, and I answered the tweet myself. Who would be the best quarterbacks in college football for the Netflix-style quarterback documentary? If you guys aren't familiar, go check it out. Really interesting. Netflix put out, which it's through Omaha Productions, which is Peyton Manning, Denver Broncos legend. They put out a documentary-style show where this whole so the 2022 season, so the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. Obviously, there's a lot of storylines going on. The show was following Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, Marcus Mariota. So you got to see not just them on the field dealing with injuries, success, adversity. They followed them at their home lives, or their at-home lives. And so we got to see Patrick Mahomes and his wife kind of deal with the scrutiny that they face. We got to see Kirk Cousins, a side of him that most people don't realize I think Kirk Cousins has. I think he's either criticized, called corny, or I just feel like Kirk Cousins, a lot of cuss sounds, you know. I think he's one of the more scrutinized athletes in the NFL, and I think it's just because he's kind of like an average white dude, kind of dad looking guy that people are just like, he's easy to pick on. He doesn't do social media that well. I don't know if he does social media at all. He dresses like an older man. There's always a story about him having a van. He's just an easy target. And so seeing the human element of Kirk Cousins was really cool. And then Marcus Mariota, a former top pick turned journeyman, who is still trying to save his career as a starter, which I think this past season kind of put the nail in the coffin for his chances at starting. But it was really cool to see all their journeys. Obviously, Mahomes won the Super Bowl, so his journey went the furthest. You got to see success, you got to see disappointment, and you got to see Mariota kind of get injured and leave the team in an interesting fashion. So the Twitterverse was discussing who would be the best quarterbacks to follow in college football. And so I put together a list of 3 quarterbacks, and I had 11 honorable mentions. Shedeur Sanders was one of my honorable mentions. And the only reason Shedeur gets honorable mention here and not isn't one of the 3, which I would easily sub him out for one of the 3, but I think I picked a good 3 going with the theme of the show. So, and like I said, the only reason Shedeur, I say, wouldn't get the nod, which he honestly might because Coach Prime's there. And so I feel like people would want to follow both of those 2. But I think in the spirit of following quarterbacks only, I think there's the fact that Well-Off Media, which they have fantastic coverage. Well-Off is obviously the pinnacle of covering Colorado. They have, obviously, they're there for everything. So it's really cool to see their behind the scenes. So Shedeur kind of is already in a quarterback style documentary. So I wanted to pick quarterbacks from in and around the country that I thought would be good fits. Here are my honorable mentions. Spencer Rattler. Obviously, he did QB1 in high school. Didn't portray him that well. He actually kind of looked a little, for lack of a better term, actually, he just didn't come off well. He came off kind of rude, kind of cocky, just wasn't a nice looking, or not nice looking, nice guy. He was kind of very critical of his teammates and wasn't shy about it. And I think the camera adds to your personality. So if you're someone who, like, if you're a program who you don't want distractions and your quarterback has a camera on him, depending on who your quarterback is, that's a good thing or a bad thing. My second one was Frank Harris at the University of Texas San Antonio. I think he's one of the best group of 5 quarterbacks out there. Not a lot of people know about him, and not a lot of people know about UTSA, but they're a rising program. A lot of success under Jeff Traylor. DJ Uiagalelei at Oregon State was featured on QB1, but not because it was about him. It was actually about who he was backing up for a little bit, Real Mitchell, who I believe is now at the University of San Diego. DJ kind of took Real's shine on that show at St. John Bosco. He's a super quiet guy, so I don't know if he'd be the most interesting guy, but former top recruit that is trying to revive his career. Sam Hartman, another QB1 alum, transferred from Wake Forest to Notre Dame. Super interesting guy. Overcame some surgeries, had a rib removed, and now he's supposed to be the next best quarterback at Notre Dame who's supposed to get them over the hump. John Reese Plumlee at UCF plays baseball and football. So I think just seeing the behind the scenes of what that would be like would be interesting. Shedeur Sanders was my other guy here. Shedeur is obviously comes from Jackson State. Not a lot of people were able to watch him there. Not a lot of people, I know people were following Jackson State because of Coach Prime and Shedeur, but I would say the general college football population wasn't tuned in to all of the stuff that was going on there. But they had a documentary, and I think he's experienced, so he'd be a good fit. He knows what documentarians want, and I think as a team, he knows what to say, what not to say. And he's an interesting personality. He's dealing with the pressure of being the son of one of the best football players of all time. He's trying to prove that he can play at the Power 5 level, which a lot of people criticize him for and say he won't be able to. So that'd be another one. Drake May at North Carolina, one of the best quarterbacks, probably 2 or 3 best quarterbacks in the country. Don't know a lot about him as a person, so I feel like that'd be interesting. Joe Milton, I think one of the most overhyped quarterbacks in the country because he has a huge arm and he played well in like a couple games in replace of Hendon Hooker. So seeing how he lives up to that hype would be interesting to me. I went back to the HBCU level here, or the HBCU teams circuit. Davius Richard, NC Central, North Carolina Central. They're the ones that beat Shedeur Sanders in the Cricket Bowl. This team. So I think seeing Davius Richard, probably the face of HBCU football right now. I think seeing him in light after the aftermath Coach Prime and Shadur at Jackson State would be interesting. Hudson Card at Purdue, former Texas quarterback trying to revive his career, show he could be a starter. Just had horrible timing at Texas. Was there when Sam Ehlinger was finishing up his career. Won the starting job over Casey Thompson, ended up losing the starting job. Casey Thompson leaves, Quinn Ewers comes in, didn't start over Quinn. And then Bo Nix at Oregon, would like to see how he plays without Kenny Dillingham. Excuse me. My nose is so itchy today. I don't know why. I think it's allergy season right now, and it's killing me. So I apologize for that. Here's my 3 picks. These would be the ones that I would be interested to see, and I think these would all make a lot of sense. JT Daniels at Rice. Now, you're probably like, why Rice? Why JT Daniels? Former 5-star, former number 1 overall recruit, modern day prodigy, went to USC, left high school a year early, went to USC, was a starter, a stud, got injured the first game of the next season. Keaton Slovis took over, never looked back, transferred to Georgia. He was going to be the answer to all their problems at quarterback. Got injured again, lost his spot to Stetson Bennett, who led them to a championship twice. And then he transfers to West Virginia, where it just didn't work out. And so now he's on his 4th school at Rice. And I think he kind of reminds me of the Mariota role, the journeyman turn the top guys turn journeyman. Would love to see how he deals with adversity. Would love to see how he deals with kind of where his career is at now. Obviously, he still has potential to maybe make the NFL, but quite the uphill climb for someone who was at one point assumed to be a future top overall pick. Quinn Ewers at Texas, former number 1 overall pick, former perfectly rated, had one of the high. He was one of the, I think it's 15 guys that had a perfect rating. So I think it's like Vince Young. I know Robert Condici was one, maybe Jadeveon Clowney. So it's rare to get a perfect rating in recruiting. He was one of them. Left, similar to Daniels, left high school early, went to Ohio State, had like 3 handoffs, transferred to Texas. Underwhelmed his first season. So now he's responsible for trying to lead Texas to their best season in however long. And I think a lot of people would be interested to see. Also, he's very low key, so I think he'd be interesting. And then my last one, this would be the Patrick Mahomes comparison. I think Quinn would be the Kirk Cousins comparison. Caleb Williams, the best quarterback in college football, in my opinion, draws comparisons to Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen already. And people say he's more advanced than both of them were at this age or this level. USC is looking to return to their glory days. USC is about to leave the Pac-12 for the Big Ten. And they were super close to winning the Pac-12 last year. And so I think those would all be great picks. I think Shadur himself would be a great pick. A lot of interesting people to follow in college football. I think for college football, the problem is you have 133 FBS teams, and I threw in a couple FCS guys, I threw in an FCS guy as well. There's so many interesting storylines to follow. So following 3 guys, like at the NFL, there's 32. So that's not, obviously there's still a lot more quarterbacks, but when let's see, 3 out of 32 is, it's almost 1% of the quarterbacks, but you get 3 out of 133. Yeah, a lot less. Yeah, that's crazy. I keep looking at the numbers. There's just so many interesting storylines in college football, which is why we love the sport. Either way, those would be my picks for the documentary. Hopefully we see something like that soon. Would love to kind of see who they would go with, why they'd go with them, and how the season pans out. When we come back, I'm going to be talking about the most interesting things I saw at Pac-12 Media Day from the commissioner and some other programs. Welcome back. We're talking about the most interesting storylines at Pac-12 Media Day. I already talked about some, well, not this in particular, but I talked about stuff like this subject matter, earlier in the week with Spencer McLaughlin from Pac-12, Locked on Pac-12. Also, I didn't thank you guys for tuning in every single day. I appreciate you guys' support. I appreciate you guys tuning in every single day and always giving feedback and subscribing. We hit 2,300, which is a pretty big number for us. Really appreciate that. And so let's continue the trend. Let's continue to build, and let's continue to have fun. So one of the biggest questions about Pac-12 Media Day is the media rights deal. Realistically, the Pac-12 has not had a lot of success in this realm. I guess you could say they've been heavily criticized all year, talking about how they everyone's loyal, but then there's rumors that people are going to leave, like Colorado are going to leave the conference. Today, the commissioner, George Kliavkoff, said the longer we wait for our media deal, the better our options are. And then he also said, we are not announcing the TV deal today on purpose because I want to focus on football. And then people were like, oh, so you do have a TV deal? Because that sounds like you have a TV deal. And then he follows that up and goes, people are reading too much into it to assume that the TV deal is done. And he did not mean that. So the deal is not done, which we knew kind of yesterday. If you were following along yesterday, there was some indications that they met. And they were just supposed to learn about whoever was going to be another interested partner. So that was interesting. Another thing that was interesting was multiple schools came out, Utah and a couple others were like, we're loyal to the Pac-12. We're not going anywhere. So my biggest takeaway from this is that the done yet are going to stay loyal to the Pac-12. Whether people want to admit it or not, if I just froze, let me repeat that. People are staying loyal to the Pac-12. The Big 12 is not as attractive as they seem. The Big 12 will forever be until this round. The Big 12 is a contingency plan, nothing more, nothing less. People don't want to go there, but they will if they have to. And so the Pac-12 kind of has all the cards in their hands. It's just the way they're doing it is very interesting. So I will continue to keep you guys updated on that. I appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked On Buffs. I hope you guys have a great Friday and a great weekend. So make sure to like, subscribe, follow. I appreciate you guys. Make sure to follow me over on Athlon to see the latest on everything Pac-12 and Colorado. Have a great day.